Yeah, that's a good question because I think that a lot of folks they don't understand what that Roth actually means.
Hmm.
And I think that especially when you're going through an employer for your retirement accounts, they either may not have even been offered it, or a lot of times people don't realize that even if you have an employer plan through work, like I'm all for taking advantage of employer contributions and 401ks and all of that. But you can also have a second account that's not tied to your employer. And I think most folks who maybe have just started scraping the surface on personal finance and investing, they don't realize that you can do both. So I've noticed that through my education, I focus on, telling people, hey, go for it. Whatever your company offers, you want to make sure you take advantage of those perks. But don't forget that on the side, you can kind of have your own investing long-term strategy going. And in my opinion, the best way to do that is through the Roth. Because it gives you that balance of maybe you are getting a tax break through a 401k through work. So you're already getting the tax break there in your, personal finances. You can start to grow something that'll be tax free. So you do take a tax hit up front because it's not getting deducted from your income, but down the line, you're typically much better off with the Roth because it's going to grow tax free.
Welcome, everybody, back to another exciting show of the About That Wallet podcast. I have the awesome opportunity to bring on the co-host of Ready to Roth. And she has done so many things to help people build up their money habits so that they can retire comfortably. She focused on those who are in their 20s and also has been coaching people for well over 5 years. In the way of educating them to, based on her own experiences through her complicated life and learning about the finances and especially the Roth retirement. So welcome, Krista. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, Anthony. Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
Awesome. So just to dive right on in, what in the world is a Roth?
Wow. All right, we're getting to it. Okay, so a Roth IRA is a type of retirement account. And when you think about Roth, it can actually go in front of a couple different account types, including an IRA, which is an individual retirement account, or a 401k, which some folks may have heard of because it's a kind of a new fancy offering happening right now. But the short of it is that Roth just means when you start investing in this sort of account, you're putting your money in after it's already been taxed by the government. So that just means that the money that goes into something that's a Roth, it gets to grow tax free. And then when you go to take it out, you don't have to deal with any sort of taxation, which is a little different for folks who may be used to kind of a traditional, like a 401k, for example, where all of that money goes in before you've been taxed on it. So then down the line, you have to worry about the taxes after the fact.
So how did you get into learning about the Roth in the first place?
That's a good question because this is super nerdy for me. I've gone on, kind of a deep dive rabbit hole on Roth IRAs, but the reason is I actually read Ramit Sethi's book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it honestly changed my life. It really opened up this world of investing and personal finance and tips and tricks for me and gave me a framework to really start my own learning and implementing things in my life. But what really struck me about that book is he started talking about Roth IRAs, and it was kind of like Roth IRA light. I was like, oh, wait, like this is something I can do that's not tied to my employer, that will grow tax free so I don't have to worry about taxes. And then I learned about some of the cool hacks, like you can actually take money out of a Roth IRA without any penalties, as long as it's just the money that you contributed. So none of the money that you've earned on it. Mm-hmm. I started learning little tips and tricks like that. And honestly, for me, coming from a background of folks who I'd put us in a category of paycheck to paycheck growing up. but at times having maybe windfalls or, when I was young, it felt like a windfall. I think it was more living on credit and really getting ourselves into debt. But it was this really weird situation where we would have flashy new things and then we would have no money and then we would have nothing and then we would have flashy new things and no money and just kind of this vicious cycle. So I realized that the Roth IRA was actually particularly created for folks in a certain income bracket. And it's really not for folks who are super high earners. And I just really loved that. I loved that it was honestly for like the common person, low to middle income to really try to grow their wealth. So that's kind of the long story of why, but why I'm here talking to you about it is because I got really into Roth IRAs and I decided to talk to all of my friends and family about it nonstop. And they were finally just like, you have got to find people who are actually interested in this to go talk to about it because we're tired of hearing it. So that's where I decided to start actually helping people with this concept that wanted to learn about it.
Nice. Because it's nothing like being able to talk to people who's like generally excited about the topic, and also because for me, I'm one of those people that's interested because you hear about it, but not too many people take advantage of it. Have you come across people why they chose not to do the Roth?
Yeah, that's a good question because I think that a lot of folks they don't understand what that Roth actually means. Mm-hmm. And I think that especially when you're going through an employer for your retirement accounts, they either may not have even been offered it, or a lot of times people don't realize that even if you have an employer plan through work, I'm all for taking advantage of employer contributions and 401ks and all of that. But you can also have a second account that's not tied to your employer. And I think most folks who maybe have just started scraping the surface on personal finance and investing, they don't realize that you can do both. So I've noticed that through my education, I focus on, telling people, hey, go for it. Whatever your company offers, you want to make sure you take advantage of those perks. But don't forget that on the side, you can kind of have your own investing long-term strategy going. And in my opinion, the best way to do that is through the Roth. Because it gives you that balance of maybe you are getting a tax break through a 401k through work. So you're already getting the tax break there in your, personal finances. You can start to grow something that'll be tax free. So you do take a tax hit up front because it's not getting deducted from your income, but down the line, you're typically much better off with the Roth because it's going to grow tax free.
Nice. Do you need a lot of money to get into the Roth?
No. So depending on the company you decide to open your Roth with, some companies like Fidelity, for example, mm-hmm. I love Fidelity because you can literally start investing with $1 in your Roth. Other companies, like if you're more of a Vanguard person, they have $1,000 minimum to get started. And that's just kind of across the board for them in any of their funds. But yeah, lots of companies offer lower startup amounts and really help anyone, for the most part, get started.
Nice. So, when it comes to credit unions or something that's a little local, do they fund Roths, or is it just strictly for the bigger banks?
I have seen some local Roth. I guess I'd call it advertisements. But from my understanding so far, because I'll just be really honest with you, I have my accounts at Fidelity and Vanguard because they're kind of the ones I found out about and I just went for it. But when I was getting my taxes done last year by a very local provider, they actually offered me a Roth IRA option. The way they set it up, though, was that, they kind of help you get started and they manage it, but it's through one of those larger firms. So I've only personally heard about most of them through your Ally banks, your Fidelities, your larger brokerage institutions. But I'm sure the smaller ones are out there.
Okay. I mean, it was some good strategies because by the time this episode comes out, it's being 2023. And so we just want to try to focus on some of those strong habits to kind of help people get in tune with their money early before the rest of the year gets into the rest of their pockets,
Yeah.
So what are some of the maybe the top 3 strategies, or what would you suggest that somebody to start doing today to just get educated or to make that first move?
Yeah. So Anthony, do you want tips, I guess, particular to the Roth, or are we talking like general get my money together in 2023, or maybe a mix of both?
Let's do a mix of both. Let's give them all up. Yeah.
All right, we're going for it. So I think that it's really cool to think about your money as kind of like a past, present, future approach. And January, or every sort of challenge that happens in January, is the best time to do this. So what I would recommend for folks is, first of all, think about the past and think about your spending habits. So about once a year, I like to take a look and just focus on the last 30 days of my income and expenses. And now with that, if you're doing it in January, then you're looking at December, which probably means lots of holiday stuff. So maybe look at a month that's a little more typical for your year and just try to figure out exactly where are my dollars going. Because I know for me, when I start to get that, I'm using my credit card and I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I should be buying this. And then, I start to hesitate. Mm-hmm. It's usually because I just have stopped looking at my accounts, and I'm doing that thing where I just avoid looking at the amounts and pretend that it's not there. So what I recommend first off is just sit yourself down, make yourself look at the account, and honestly go through that itemized list of exactly where did my money go, because that gives you the visibility. And most times people realize that ooh, it's not as bad as my anxiety was leading me to believe. So once you do that, step 2 is kind of looking at your present situation, which is taking a snapshot of think of it as how am I doing financially? And what I like to do is take a look at net worth calculations. So a site I use for that is Personal Capital, but there's tons of them out there. Essentially, you're trying to use a tool that just tells you, how much do I have in terms of investments and cash, and think of the positive category versus how much do I owe in terms of loans, debts, credit cards, stuff like that. And that'll actually give you an idea right off the bat of where you might want to start prioritizing your money. For some people, it's going to be debt pay down. If you've got a lot of credit card debt, focus there first. For some people,
after the holidays.
Exactly. For some people, which was more so my situation, I didn't have a ton of assets, and assets just meaning that good amount, right? Things that you own in cash, because I had so much student loan debt that the cash that I did have was pretty much all going towards student loans. So I knew that for me, I needed to focus a little more on paying down student loans while also increasing my income. So I actually had more cash to do what I wanted to do. So that's kind of that present bucket, right? Mm-hmm. We looked at everything in the past. We kind of get an idea of where we are now. And then the future bucket for me is really creating a spending plan. And what I love to tell folks is if you can think about your monthly spending in terms of ratios, it's really helpful. So I approach it as what I call a 50, 30, 20 split. And 50% of my monthly income is going to go toward all that stuff I can't avoid, rent, mortgage payment, car payment, food, all that stuff. I want to keep it to 50% or less, ideally. 30% for me is all the stuff that it's kind of your variable money. It's a little bit fun money, but also the expenses that you can control. So if you're going to go shopping, that's where you pull your money from that. If you're going to go out to eat. And then that 20% for me, that's where I'm focusing on my saving and investing. And that's where I start to launch into whether it's a Roth IRA or whether you're putting more toward your employer's retirement account or 401k. If you can know what's about 20% of my monthly income, and that's the money that I get to have this year to start putting toward all these other things I want to explore.
Wow. So for those of you who didn't get that, I'll make sure it'll be a soundbite so we can get that 50, 30, 20 split down packed, because that is one of the amazing strategies that it's pretty famous out there. And I'm glad that you were able to break that down. And as you're listening, you guys, it's really something that I think we can all take advantage of. Is just kind of look at where our money is going and then what habits that we're going to do to kind of improve our futures. And thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, of course. This is where, I get excited about talking about money because some people like to hear it. Some people are like, will you stop talking already? I get it.
Because I like to dive into the psychological side of the house of money, because we all have some traumas in some form or fashion. And like you say, you talked about your cycle in the past. Is that something that you trying to run away from? Is to try to repeat that same cycle that your parents are doing back then?
Yeah, it's something that I have been pretty conscious of, I'd say, since around like high school for me, and then going into early college. But I'll be honest with you. I think my original approach to it was not very healthy, because I took I took a look and I was like, okay, well, I definitely don't want to do any of this. So I'm just going to become what I call like a super, super saver, which led to, being super frugal, which some people are just frugal by nature, and I'm not bashing that at all. But I became frugal to the point where I actually wasn't able to enjoy kind of like normal things. Does that make any sense?
Well, what's a normal thing?
Like, let's say, it's once a month, my friends are getting together and I'd have a ton of fun going out to eat with them.
Yeah.
And the thing was, I had the money. It wasn't like I didn't have the money, but I have the money, I want to go, but I'd be like, that's kind of frivolous. I don't really need that.
Yeah.
But when I really think about it, like, friends are important. I should probably foster those relationships, make sure I'm having fun. So I feel like early on when I started to earn some money and I was in a place where I could pay my bills comfortably, I still had that super saver mindset, which was actually, I think, personally holding me back from really enjoying and like experiencing where I was. And not to the point where I was, blowing money on crazy stuff. It was just like getting together with friends. So I'd say that was my initial reaction. And then once I started learning about personal finance and particularly investing and kind of like planning for the long term, I got into the habit of investing, and I knew, that 20% we talked about, I knew that I was hitting that goal. 20% was going away for me for the future. And once I had that, honestly, security blanket, then I felt like I was able to focus on that 30% of kind of fun money more and like truly enjoy it.
Nice. Do you think that kind of impacted like your favorite activities now, as far as like soccer and hockey and so forth?
Oh, absolutely. So I did get to a point where I was living in the DC area, like Northern Virginia, right after college. And I held back for a while. So I was like, co-ed soccer teams are expensive. Probably shouldn't do this. And usually for me, if you were on a co-ed team, then that also meant like dinner and drinks after every single game, because that was even more fun than the soccer. So I held back. And then eventually, once I got a little more comfortable with where my money was going and a little more confident in that, I really started to take advantage of the sort of adult leagues. But I always played pickup on the side, so I couldn't sit for too long because I'm way too hyper for that.
Nice. It's like my childhood was here, and now I get to do all the fun stuff.
Exactly. And also, like, I had some injuries from college that started to sneak up on me, so I was like, I probably don't have a ton of years left to play this game at the level that I want to, so I should probably start.
Nice. But now, where you at now? Do you actually still play like solo, or you just kind of still try to get some pickup teams and so forth now?
I'm in a bit of an interesting spot right now because I just finished. I know we were talking about this. I just finished hiking the Pacific Crest Trail, which took me about 5 months. So we hiked I did it with a group of 4. We hiked from Mexico to Canada on the West Coast, and it was wild. Honestly, it was awesome, but it was insane. So I'm recovering. We finished up in September, and I've got a couple nagging things from that. So I'm just trying to get back into stuff slowly, but I've got my eyes on a couple of leagues that I want to join in January.
Yeah, I know this is because I talk about financial habits, but you had to have. I'm just thinking about your hiking journey. Like, what got you to think about like, yes, I can do this, and make that first step? Like, yeah, I'm gonna start in Chicago. Sounds like fun.
Um, it was a mix of actually being around people that knew that this was a thing. So I'd say I don't know how much time we have, but I'll give you a background. We're good. Okay. So I grew up kind of suburb, city-ish. And my family was like a buggy riding family, four-wheelers and stuff, but not necessarily like a go camping and live in the woods type family. So I didn't really know that this was a thing until I got to college and I met my partner. We met in college, and she was the type of family that was like out and about her whole childhood, camping, hiking, etc. So she knew that this was a trail that people walked like we did. And then we met some other friends in college who also knew that like this is something they wanted to do. So I actually became an add-on to something that they already knew about, but we were all, soccer players. That's kind of how we all met, competitive. Once we started full-time work, we were just kind of like, this is it. Like, this is kind of lame. I go to my job and then what else do I do? I don't have like a soccer coach telling me I have to run for 3 hours a day. So I think we were all a little like let down by the transition between college athlete to the working world. So we kind of had it in our head since college that like eventually at some point in our lives, we wanted to do something like this. So the idea was there, but I think more to your point, the actual like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go through with this.
Yes.
It was really tough for me, I'll be honest, because I got into a mindset of like really overworking myself when I first entered the working world, to the point where, I was like, I got to make sure I'm like top of my whatever, my team. I need to like put in the hours. And when we were getting closer to actually doing this hike, it's like, I can't quit my job. Like, what do you mean? That's insane. Like, why would I do that? What does that look like on my resume? And then I really had to like have a heart to heart with myself. I was like, if I don't do this, what does that look like?
Right.
Versus if I do this, what does that look like? And in the grand scheme of things, is 5 months on a resume worth, the potential lifetime experience or, experience of a lifetime. So that kind of mental game started to work on me. And then in the meantime, there was a very real financial aspect that we all had to prepare for, because this probably cost us all in between like paying for bills without working, mm-hmm. and then also paying for the hike itself, about $10,000 each. And we all started planning for this probably about 4 years before we actually hiked it. So that gave us enough time to figure out like we could save up for it and then also have some buffer afterward. So I added in about $5 extra grand for this time right now, where I'm just kind of getting myself back in shape and starting a new job and all that. So it was a process. I'll be honest with you, Anthony. I'm so glad I did it, but it took a lot of planning. And for me, just the mental step to like pull the trigger and really decide I was going to do it was the hardest part.
See, there's a lot of takeaways from that. And I'm hopefully if I miss anything, let me know. So in this whole space, and I'm going to cater it mostly towards the financial side of the house. So you already found people who already had made this trip or are aware of the trip that you're about to go on, which means that in the financial space, you find somebody that is roughly around in the same rung on that same ladder as you are, that has already seen the trajectory because they've witnessed other people in their circle has done this. And so now you as a bystander, but now also in this circle, it's like, hey, let me go ahead on and take the leap with the rest of them because we all going to do this journey together. But it wasn't like you just did it yesterday. It was a 4-month plan, and that you all came up with a game plan to get this done together. And I'm thinking about it in the sense that you have to think about your finances the same way, because granted, like, hey, you have your friends and y'all not talking about finances, but like, say if somebody want to do even basic thing, like you said, $10,000 for 4 years. If everybody breaks that down to $10,000, like say if everybody put their mindset together for a trip, but yet when it comes to their investments, they don't want to do that, which I think is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Like easy, like, oh yeah, life experiences, but not my future.
No, actually, I really love that you brought that up, because something for me coming from, my childhood, and we talked about how I got into that habit of investing, which made me feel more comfortable in just like my day-to-day life, like spending a little more on things. That was actually a huge point for me that also helped me feel comfortable taking a break like this, because I actually, kind of put in the budget or the spending plan that I would still make sure I was investing a similar amount while I was on the trail. So I added that in as a buffer, because like I'm sure you can relate to this, but it was like, as long as mentally, like I knew I was still doing that, like I knew I was still taking care of future me, it helped me have the moment that I really wanted, away from work and away from distractions and cell phones and all of this stuff. So that was really important to me. And I forgot to mention that, because actually probably all in, I really wanted to save around 20,000, which was a stretch goal for me, but I was able to make that happen. And that included the amount that I wanted to make sure I was still investing while I was away.
That is amazing. And yeah, we might have to have a whole nother episode just on your journey.
Oh man, I'd love to.
Yeah. If not, I mean, we can always tune in to Ready to Roth podcast when that episode comes out. So, but let's go on and start talking about the third segment of the show, which is your future. What skills or habits that you feel that you need to take yourself to the next level?
Man, I've been thinking a lot about this, and for me personally, something I want to develop, but also just get more comfortable doing, is telling my story. And it's something that came up for me actually around FinCon, which I know we were both, hearing all the things and all the inspiration. And it feels like the people that really become successful, like really, really successful, are the people that are able to focus on their own authentic experience of the world.
Yes.
And then just share that in a way that is like, yeah, I'm sure they like doctor it up a little bit, right? You have to put it in like a storytelling format, but I'm not really good at any of that. And I know that. So I think for me, it's part like being really comfortable, getting more vulnerable and just kind of honest, while at the same time trying to figure out, the storytelling format that resonates the most with people that I guess are interested in my story. Because I've been trying to think about what I'm interested in when I listen to other people and what really helps me connect with them. And I think that's a skill that if I can kind of turn around and do that for others, that would help me honestly grow, but even more importantly, like impact the people that I want to impact, and help other people make change. Because I feel like, honestly, especially in the finance space, like you could say, here, do these 5 things, like click this button, put this amount, invest in this fund. But like no one wants to do that unless they hear it from someone that they really respect, or their story really resonates with them, or even someone that, like, diversity is so important, looks like them, sounds like them. So those are just the things that I'm kind of exploring in my personal life. And historically, it's been hard for me to tell stories that are either hard and like really close to the best, or just in a way that makes people, I guess, excited to take steps. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. Your hiking story alone is a book in itself. Based on the values, even though you were just giving me the raw data, it wasn't like you were just kind of like, oh, this is the reason why, blah, blah. No, it's what happened. Like, it's my interpretation and my personal perception of your story that resonated with me. As far as your mindset on getting everything together. Like I took out of it the mindset side of the house. Somebody else might take about it like, oh, that's possible. Let me talk to my friends. Let's do this. This sounds really cool. So I think that the beauty of storytelling is just tell the story, and everybody will pick out of it what they like. I mean, you hear about the Bible, the pastor always telling the same line that you read, you might get something, the pastor might get something, the person that's sitting next to you might get something else. Like, everybody's going to get something out of it. So I think I would love to hear your story when you put it all down in the black and white.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's something it's kind of always been in the back of my head, and I really want to explore in this next phase of, life and whatever happens.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, Anthony, can you answer that question for me?
What's up?
I don't know what your, what sort of skills or, steps you're taking.
The skills that I feel that will take me to the next level is, one of the things is that I need to actually do the things that I'm thinking about. Okay. And that's one of the hardest things for me is the art of doing. I might as well just call it. That'll be the book title.
There it is. I need to read that book.
Right. Because I have so many ideas, and it's like, where do I start? And then I figure out, okay, I can start here, but would anybody else like it? And then who else would willing to listen to me or read about it? Like, yeah, granted, this is the way how I started this podcast because people got tired of me talking about finances. And plus, I don't have kids. So I'm like, well, this is me giving out to the world of my story and the things that I came across, and also to share other people's stories in that same process. But, like I want to write a book. So I had to now figure out, okay, well, where do I start? So, but I was thinking about once I hit 100 guests that I interviewed, I will go ahead on and start writing a book at that point. I'm only at like 75 at this point. So yeah, got 25 more to go.
I'm going to send you some names.
Please do.
I want the book. I want the book.
Okay. All right. Yeah. If you guys are listening out there, if y'all want to send me some names, please let me know. Let's make this happen.
Well, thank you for sharing. I always appreciate hearing like what everyone else is thinking through or struggling with, and how they're trying to make themselves, get with it or get started. Because I can relate to that too. It's like, for me, I don't know if this is for you, but for me, it's like I get so caught up in the details too sometimes, like that it prevents me from actually taking the first step. I'm like, well, I could do this, or I can do this, or I could do this, and what would this look like? And then I've planned everything out and never taken a step.
And I think that's the beauty and also the ugly of being in America is like you have so many options. And it's like in other countries, you only get 3. Like when you go out to go shopping for let's just say something simple, like your utensils, like your spoons, forks, knives, or whatever. You only get one set, one way. That's it. Everybody getting the same thing. So there's no guessing, oh, do I get the one with the red handle or the blue handle or the green handle, crystal, whatever. No. It's metal. It's what you get.
That's so true. We're just like overwhelmed. I feel overwhelmed with the options. And it's a really good problem to have, because I try to like keep that in the back of my mind too, that I do have so much opportunity and options, but it's like, man, do I sit there and stare at the forks for an hour, or could I be writing my book?
Exactly. I can imagine somebody in the aisle like, do you want the red spoons or do you want the green spoons? Like, they got sparkles.
I'm gonna look in my kitchen. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, fun times. All right. You ready for the final 4 questions?
Let's do it.
Alrighty. Number 1, what does wealth mean to you?
Oof. Okay. I think wealth for me is having a lifestyle or having the means to have a lifestyle that lets you live in a way that feels most fulfilling to you. And I feel like that's probably a super fluffy answer, but I was trying to like cover all my bases there, because what's important to me and what's important to someone else is super different. But I feel like for me, defining wealth for each individual is like really getting clear on your wants and needs. And of course, making sure your basic necessities are taken care of, but then having enough, whether it's time, money, flexibility, to really just live life the way that feels most fulfilling to you.
I like it. Number 2, what was your worst money mistake?
Not knowing how expensive college actually was.
You can say that again. Oh.
I mean, that's it. I'm sure everyone knows what that means, but like paying for it after the fact is very different than signing the loan paperwork that lets you pay for it while you're actually there.
Yes. Oh, that's a whole nother episode. Number 3, what is your favorite financial or non-financial book?
Got two. I've got one financial and one non-financial. So financial book, hands down, is I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. He's funny, he's relatable, and at the same time, he's kind of a no BS style writer. And it really resonated with me when I was just getting started. Non-financial book, I'm not going to lie, it's the Harry Potter series. Hey. It's all I can't choose one, but the whole thing, that's where, when I'm like really down, or every holiday season, like that's what I watch / read / get really excited about.
Nice. And I'm sure you already took a trip to the Harry Potter adventure, I guess, exhibit that Disney has.
I actually haven't. I've only been to Disney. I went to Disney once in high school.
Sorry. It's not Disney. It's Orlando. I mean, Universal. Oh, so many places. Universal Studios has it. That's right.
Is it awesome? Have you been?
It's great. Yeah. Make sure you get the park pass though.
Okay.
So you can catch the train. So yeah.
Oh, okay. We'll have to talk about that, because I don't know anything about going there and like making it worthwhile.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Number 4. What is your favorite dish to make?
I'm just going to answer this one honestly. I love making my oatmeal in the morning.
Right. Okay.
It's like, I probably eat oatmeal like 320 days out of the year. Like I'm that kind of eater sometimes, which is, for some people, just like, are you an alien? Like I eat the same things every day for the most part. But oatmeal just makes me very excited. I wake up, I've got my oats, my old-fashioned oats, my blueberries, my cinnamon, my peanut butter, a little bit of oat milk, and sometimes banana. And like every day I make it, and I just feel so happy.
Nice. Awesome. It sounds delicious. I haven't tried it with peanut butter though. I have tried it with the fruit though.
It's a game changer. Okay. If you like peanut butter, it's a game changer. Or treat yourself with some Nutella, which is
okay. Nutella oatmeal. Very last question, which is, where could people find out more about you and your podcast?
So I am pretty much at Ready to Roth on all of the things, Instagram, TikTok. I've got a LinkedIn page now. But then in terms of the podcast, if you search Ready to Roth, wherever you get your podcasts, you'll find us. And I've got a website as well. So readytoroth.com. If you just type that in somewhere, you'll find us.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Hopefully you were able to take away some of these awesome, exciting tips and learn more about Krista's story. Because if you're not finding her drumming her way through all of, touring all of Chicago and wherever, playing some cool jams. Yeah. And rocking out while she's playing soccer, please make sure that you go ahead on and check out Ready to Roth. And make sure you guys let me know when you started your Roth as well. So type in Roth in the show notes, in the comments. I think you can do it in Spotify and also on YouTube. So if you contribute to your Roth, type in Roth, and we'll make sure that we can play it to you a little later. All right, everybody. Y'all be safe.
Bye, guys.